Hello everyone, it's Ken. Normally I like to make very positive videos due to the extreme oversaturation of negative content that seems to consistently surround Dead by Daylight. From terrible reworks, to events that are lackluster, to even characters not being what people had in mind. It almost seems like the community always has something to complain about. Dead by Daylight has a constant stream of negativity, so I normally like to look on the positive side. But recently, I've noticed a clear and consistent problem that behavior is having. This problem does not seem to really have been noticed by the wider player base or even creators. However, I do fear that if this problem goes unaddressed by the community or by the developers, it could fester to an even bigger problem. If this problem goes unaddressed by behavior, it could cause the guaranteed success and popularity of the game from FNAF to fade much quicker than it should. This problem is a lack of commitment from behavior. I know, it sounds vague, but once I expand on it, I'm sure you'll agree this is probably the best way I can go about describing it. An example I can make of this problem is something that happened in a very recent PTB. There was a change in a PTB that didn't even make it out of the PTB, and that is the removal of Haste and Hinder stacking. For those who are new to DBD, Haste is an effect that increases the speed of a player, and Hinder does the exact opposite. These effects can stack with multiple sources, allowing for ungodly fast speed or unbearably slow. However, over the past few years, behavior has had a clear balance plan in mind when it comes to balancing these Haste and Hinder perks. If they are non-exhaustion Haste perks, they usually have a 1 to 10% speed increase. However, these perks can be combined with other perks to go well beyond 10%. This almost always makes the devs create rather weak speed-related perks, as not to create an unholy combination of perks that would break the game overnight. This would usually make most Haste or Hinder perks borderline useless without another one. There's a very good combination that is an outlier in this, and that is Champion of Light and Fixated. For those who don't know, Champion of Light is a perk that allows you to flashlight blind a killer, and they're applied with the Hinder status effect. However, while you're using the flashlight, you have an increase in speed. Fixate is a much simpler perk that allows you to move faster while walking, and since you're using your flashlight, you're considered to be walking. Thus the two Haste perks stack. These two perks normally are very good on their own. You can use Champion of Light on its own and Fixate on its own. Fixate can be used to get rid of exhaustion while walking. But overall, this combo isn't way too strong. It's definitely a fun one, but not game-breaking strong. However, with the Steady Pulse PTB, the one where Arella Rose was introduced, behavior attempted to remove the stacking of all Haste and Hinder perks. But of course, this would cause a very obvious problem. Already existing weak perks would become even weaker when you can't stack them with another. The natural solution would be to buff pretty much all non-exhaustion related perks. However, they decided only to buff a small portion of perks, while leaving an even bigger portion of perks completely unaffected, making them borderline unusable. When I first heard about them possibly removing Haste and Hinder stacking, I was very much against the idea. But once I sat down and thought through where DBD currently is and where it could be when it comes to fun and accessibility to new players, I realized that the removal of the stacking effects would be a net positive over time. Even if the first few months were rather rough, I do think that the future would have been much brighter if it was removed. But the community did not agree with my sentiment. However, I don't really blame them, as behavior made little to no effort to even buff or change any perks that would need to be changed in order to make this change feel warranted or needed. And this is where the problem stems. A lack of commitment from making big and noticeable changes that would be a good change for the future of Dead by Daylight. I have seen this mistake happen time and time again. From having clearly not very thought out reworks, to modes that the community has been asking for years, but making little to no addition to the core gameplay loop of DBD. While I am referring to the Blood Moon event, this exact same problem extends to 2v8. With Resident Evil's 2v8, we got herbs and 2 new killers. But with the most recent edition, we also got 2 more killers and the removal of herbs, and the herbs were replaced with a reuse item from an already existing and debatably better event. When it comes to 2v8, there's literally nothing new with the 2v8 version. Yes, we have the Smoke Bomb, but the Smoke Bomb is reused from the Void event. We only get 2 new killers and sometimes a new item with 2v8, and obviously we're gonna have a problem when it comes to queue times for killer because there's literally nothing new for Survivor. No new classes, really nothing at all. While I understand and know that the updates were watered down and pushed back to ensure that the quality of life updates and the addition of FNAF were the best they can possibly be. I really do hope that this problem doesn't persist after the launch of FNAF. I don't want them to release new or updated content that's not good because they have more to be added down the line. I'm sure I'm not the only one that thinks we should have the content all at once, even if we have to wait a longer period of time between updates. I do believe that the longer the community is fed parts of content rather than content in its entirety, it will cause the general community sentiment to be much more sour towards behavior, thus making even debatably good changes very negative in the community's eyes. Of course, this is one man's opinion. What do you all think? Do you think that this problem should be taken seriously by behavior, or do you think I'm just fighting ghosts? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Without further ado, I hope you do have a nice rest of your night, morning, whatever it is for you. Bye.